In the past couple of days, a study was published discussing the existence of an ancient branch of the Nile River that flowed beside the pyramids of Giza. This river existed during the time of the pyramid construction, but disappeared over time. This research has created quite a buzz, spreading through local and international media, with many people talking about it on social media. But what is the significance of such information? What can we benefit from it? How can this topic help solve some of the mysteries surrounding the transportation of the pyramid stones? And most importantly, how can this contribute to discovering new archaeological sites buried in the sands for thousands of years? Welcome to Feral Finds, where truth meets mystery and reality intertwines with fiction. But before we start, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive our videos. To understand the importance of the research we are discussing, we need to go back to the beginning. It is known that a significant portion of the stones used to build the Giza pyramids was extracted from the Giza plateau itself. However, another portion of the stones was brought from very distant places, such as the white limestone from the Tura quarries and the granite stones from Aswan in Egypt. These stones have puzzled researchers for hundreds of years, as no one understood how the ancient Egyptians transported these massive stones over long distances exceeding 900 kilometers from Aswan to Cairo, which was a significant mystery. Therefore, many hypotheses emerged to explain this, the most important being the hypothesis that ancient Egyptians used the Nile River to transport the stones, where they would place the stones on large boats and rafts, and the movement of the Nile itself would carry the stones from Aswan to Giza. However, this hypothesis faced challenges because the Giza Plateau, which includes the three pyramids, was not directly in front of the Nile River. It was separated by about 10 kilometers, which is a considerable distance when talking about transporting stone blocks weighing tons. So how could they transport these tons over 10 kilometers? Even if this hypothesis was correct, it still faced challenges. Hence, another hypothesis began to emerge, suggesting that the Egyptians might have relied on the flood, especially since, not too long ago in modern history, before the construction of the High Dam, the Nile flood would reach the cities near Giza, close to the pyramids area. Researchers hypothesized that the water level in the Nile back then was very high, and thus, during the flood, the waters would come very close to the Giza Plateau. They exploited the expansion of the waters and transported the stones at that specific time. Therefore, some researchers suggested that the workers who built the pyramids worked only 3 months a year, which were the flood months. But is the subject settled here? The idea that boats carrying giant stones sail in floodwaters is completely illogical, because floodwaters, even if they spread over large surface areas, are not deep waters. Ships need a water body with a depth measured in meters to move. Therefore, researchers started looking for any evidence to support this idea, like whether there was a deep water channel in that area that we are unaware of. A research team from France, in collaboration with other researchers from China and Egypt, provided the evidence. They analyzed the rock layers in the pyramids area and extracted fossilized pollen grains from some plants that grow on the banks of the Nile, as well as some weeds that live in riverbeds. Their study showed that these plants lived in that area for a long time, concluding that there was water near the pyramids area, not just floodwaters. We are talking about a permanent water channel that existed in the place. Supporting this claim further, in 2013, a papyrus was discovered on the Red Sea coast called the Wadi al-Jaf papyrus, written by someone named Mira, who described how he and his team transported limestone blocks on boats from Tura to the Giza Plateau. Indeed, a research team discovered remains of buildings in the Giza Plateau area that resemble ports exactly, but they still didn't understand why there would be ports in the heart of the desert. All these stories suggest that there has always been talk of a water channel next to the Giza pyramids, and this is the channel the ancient Egyptians used to transport stones, building materials, and more. But no one knew what this channel looked like, where it extended from and to, and whether it was a natural or artificial channel they dug. There were other hypotheses suggesting that the ancient Egyptians dug water channels from the Nile to the pyramid site. Here comes the role of the research published a few days ago, which made a surprising revelation. Dr. Eman Ghanem, director of the Space and Remote Sensing Institute and the Department of Earth and Ocean Sciences at the University of North Carolina, along with a research team from Tanta University, a team from the National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics in Helwan, Egypt, and a group of researchers from the USA and Australia were all trying to answer an important question. Why did the ancient Egyptians build the pyramids away from the Nile in the first place? Then they had to dig channels to transport stones. Why this hassle? Why not build them right next to the Nile? Hence, the team began using radar satellite images that could penetrate the Earth's layers, surveying the pyramids area and expanding the survey to the north and south, taking deep soil samples and analyzing them and using geophysical surveying. The surprising discovery they made was that there was a river right in front of the pyramids area, not a water channel or a small passage, but a full river about 64 kilometers long and about 500 meters wide, separated from the pyramids by just 1 kilometer. This river was parallel to the Nile River as we know it today, and the most important point was that its depth was about 25 meters, a depth that could easily accommodate any ship. Therefore, this river was ideal for transporting stones on boats from Aswan and other different cities to Giza. The matter doesn't stop here. The river didn't only serve the Giza pyramids. If you look at any map showing the locations of the pyramids in Egypt, starting from Fayum to the Delta, you will notice that many pyramids, more than 30, are all built along one path, as if there is an invisible curved strip passing through all pyramid sites and linking them together. No one understood why the pyramids in Egypt were arranged in this strange way and why they were gathered in this particular part of the desert. But the map drawn for this new river clarified the reason. All these pyramids were built on the banks of this river, which led researchers to call it the Pyramid River, because the river was considered a highway through which stones, building materials, goods, and everything used in building the pyramids were transported. This also explains why the pyramid construction sites had structures resembling ports despite being in the heart of the desert. They concluded that they paved a stone road from the port to the construction site. The ships would come to the port, unload the stones, and then move these stones on the paved road they built, which usually was less than a kilometer long. Thus, we have a clear explanation of why the Egyptians, for more than 1,000 years, built their pyramids in that specific place in the Western Desert, and also explain the mechanism by which they transported the massive stones from Aswan to the pyramids. Finally, can we benefit from such a discovery today? We, as Egypt? Yes, the Pyramid River experienced drought and desertification over time, and the sand buried it entirely. But just as the sand covered it, it certainly covered many other things: temples, cities, tombs, and much more. This means that if we search along the banks of this river or near it, we will certainly find many archaeological sites we didn't know about. Thus, we can consider this river as a map of places where researchers should search for unknown Egyptian artifacts, especially since researchers always say that all the Egyptian artifacts discovered so far are nothing compared to the treasures still buried underground to this day. That's all for now. Who made it to the end? All those who did, you are the best. Give us a like before you leave, so we know how many reached the end. And don't forget, if you have a suggestion for an episode, write it to us in the comments. Goodbye.